So, guys, it's a very, very good evening. Welcome to the 16th episode of this bollocks known as Drop the Clutch podcast. I'm joined by Ruth, Dylan, a returning Nick. Hi, Nick. And today we've got an absolute special guest. He's probably one of the busiest riders in Speedway at the minute. Fuck knows how he's got time for us, but Jason Edwards, welcome to the show, matey.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me.
And Jace, you started your career obviously at Eastbourne in 2018, so the computer says. But you've spent quite a lot of time riding in the National League. So for you as a rider, how important is the National League into making that step in your progression?
Yeah, so I started off at the academy at Lakeside, which was kind of similar to the little track at Scunny. Exactly the same kind of thing as that. Martin Hagen provided everything. And yeah, just had a go and was that kid that went every Saturday. And yeah, just did kids meetings and second halves, and we got to do demonstration races before the meetings, and yeah, been National League ever since. So you can't just jump straight into Championship unless you are. Well, I don't know. I don't think anyone's just jumped straight into Championship and done. So it's the biggest thing is from kids to National League. It's not a massive step, and then that step from National League to Championship is just. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. So, yeah, I'm still trying to make that proper step at the moment, to be honest. I'm still trying to not get beaten. And yeah, and then again, then you go Championship and then Top League, and then you got to find your feet again. So, yeah, it's a massive thing as a difference, but we've all got to get there somehow.
And obviously, you mentioned the Martin Hagen setup as well at Lakeside. You also, if I could be wrong here, but you also rode in the British Youth Championship or whatever it was called back in the day. So if there's any youngsters listening to this, A, why the fuck are you listening to this? And B, what sort of advice would you give to any of the youngsters?
Yeah, I mean, you can't fault Neil Vatcher and everyone enough doing the youth setup because like everyone's done the British Youth Championships. Do you know what I mean? It's the natural progression through everything, and as kids, it's the only way of getting loads of meetings. I think this year they've got 8 or 9 rounds, and as being one of the kids, you're thinking this is the business now. So yeah, like I say, it's just plodding. I remember nearly every youth round I did, winning the first youth round that I did, and yeah, just everything about it. And you have to do it. You learn so much from it all. And again, you're racing. If you're based down south, they're the meetings that you get to race the northern kids and vice versa. So, yeah, and again, everyone wants to win a British round, don't they?
Yeah, and obviously, talking of British Championships and that, like when you're making that step up into the National League, like a lot of you guys ride in the amateur meetings as well.
Yeah.
How are they like important to your progression into the National League?
Yeah, I had a slightly weird kind of thing because I did 2 years on a 250, and then I turned 15 in September, so it was Lakeside at that time had just made the playoffs against the Colts, and they were just like, right, we want you in the team. So it was kind of right, okay. And then Martin helped me out, gave me a bike to ride. I mean, I probably had one practice go on a 500, and yeah, straight in the meeting. So and then in that case, it was just right. I'm 15, guess for as many teams as I possibly can, and make the most of it while I could. So yeah, it wasn't like I had a whole year on a 500 before that. It was yeah, just jump in, have a go. And I mean, you do loads of that number 8 in and standing around and looking the part, but not actually doing anything. I mean, at the time, I think I got like 50 quid for standing there. And I think oh, this is all right. Got a new
Nice.
and whatnot. But yeah, like I say, you just go through the same process with everything. But like I say, it's once you get going, and yeah, it's all part of it.
And
what was that like from the 250 to the 500 though?
Oh, I just remember I jumped on it. It was before, I think it was before a National League meeting at Lakeside, and suddenly the whole thing's vibrating itself to bits, and I'm thinking, is this normal? And yeah, it's the biggest thing I did actually notice, especially somewhere like Lakeside where it's quite tight. You probably wouldn't notice if it was like Scunny or somewhere. Was because of the weight in comparison to a 250, you just shot past the bend all the time. But yeah, like I say, it's just I know a lot of kids go straight from 125 to 500, and how they do that, God, I wouldn't want to be one of those kids. But like I say, it's like anything. It's like when you jump in a new car, everything feels a bit funny, and you feel like you got loads more power. Then you get used to it, and then you want a bit more power. So yeah, it's
But
just
yeah, 250 to 500 is a bit more than a bit more power.
yeah. Do you know what I mean? But like I say, it's the thing with the spur bike is there's just nothing to it. And I mean, how many times have we seen someone have a crash and the bike has to get carried off because it's just bent
Yeah.
a bit? Do you know what I mean?
Old under.
Yeah, it's just a glorified BMX bike. Do you know what I mean? With just a really expensive engine stuck in it, boy, it is. And yeah, you just have to stick it flat out for a minute or so.
Fair enough.
You talk about when you started, you used to guest here, there, and everywhere. That seems to have followed you through your career. You did it last season, you've done it again this season. Is it important for you to, especially at the start, stay on the bike as much as possible until it ramps up a bit?
Yeah, well, the way I see it is I've got to make the most of it while I can. We only get 6 months to do it. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, like I say, I did that year. And then obviously then the following year, it was the year Craigie did that national trophy. So I rode Freesport and Craigie that year. And then, yeah, just trying to do it as much. It's an awkward thing because, for instance, in the championship last year, because my average was 4 point something, and obviously Anders packed it in halfway through the year for Leicester, it suddenly meant I was at awkward average where it fitted for Anders for that period of time and you got loads of meetings. Had I been a 5 point rider, I wouldn't have got to guess for anyone. Do you know what I mean? And that's the hard thing all the time with speedways. You go a little bit better and you end up penalising yourself sometimes. So yeah, you've sometimes almost got to miss that stage and just become like a Ryan Douglas or someone in the championship, or kind of stay where I am, which is not where anyone wants to be. We want to move on. So yeah, it's a funny old game in that sense, isn't it?
As you mentioned, guest bookings, like you certainly like them. When you actually guest for a team, then when you get to the track and you meet up with the boys, do you like feel a part of that team?
Yeah, no, it's never the same as rocking up to being with your own team. Do you know what I mean? Because everyone's a lot more pally, you know, everyone. But 9 times out of 10, it's the problem with speedway. We see each other most of the time anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like for instance, when I guested for Scunny the other day, obviously Michael was with me the night before with Kings Lynn. Do you know what I mean? So in that sense, it's a very, very small world within speedway. You can quickly upset a lot of people. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, like I say, it's all. And the only thing is, it's obviously very individual based, but also you are guesting for a team, and you want to do the best for the team as well. But yeah, what was I found quite cool about doing it all is you learn how all different teams work. You learn what teams have an atmosphere and what teams are just a bunch of individuals, and it's just and it gives you more people that you know and more contacts and everything. For instance, if next year I didn't have a ride, I've got so many more contacts and I know who they all are that you can reach out to everyone in that sense. So yeah, hopefully opens up a few more doors and yeah, just plodding away in that sense.
And obviously, you mentioned you get to find out how team spirits and stuff are. I'm just very curious to know because I'm in the commentary thing now at Scunny. What is the team spirit like at Scunny? Is it all right, or are they just a bunch of miserable bastards?
Yeah, no, I've never had to. I guessed it for Scunny at Paul last year once, and Gary May was the replacement team manager for the night, so it wasn't really a true reflection on it. But to be honest, I quite enjoyed my 2 meetings guesting for him. Obviously, Simon's a big part of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Without Simon Lambert at Scunthorpe, it's not Scunthorpe Speedway. Do you know what I mean? That's that. And I've never had much to do with Simon, to be honest. And I seem to have met him every week because we had Kings Lynn last night as well, and he was there. But you just realise how enthusiastic certain people are. Do you know what I mean? And you also, it's always weird because when you're on the, say we're all in a team together, we'd all be chatting when we get to the meeting and whatnot. Next minute we're at Leicester tomorrow night, and you're all on the other team. You end up not speaking to everyone, and you think, well, you only got a different body colour on. You know what I mean? But it's weird in that sense. But no, like I say, the team spirit was quite good at Scunthorpe. I know obviously Simon and Connor, they're not doubling up, and I know they're not happy about that. So yeah, hopefully they can get a ride and go from there.
And there's a lot of people out there, like especially on social media, that like to criticize certain tracks and things. So if you see something like that, do you like have the urge just to be like, well, actually, the track was like this, this, and this.
Yeah, I know some riders do get quite involved, don't they? And it always ends up backfiring sometimes, doesn't it? It's hard because even take out the social media part, within Speedway, the rider seems to have no rights whatsoever. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Like if you're in a workplace and you actually have a reason you can't go in, well, you have the day off, or do you know what I mean? However, Speedway, even if you can't get a doctor's note, and we all know how hard it is to get a doctor's note now, they slap a 7-day, 20-day, whatever it is, ban instantly. Do you know what I mean? I know obviously Nick Morris had his migraine last year, and whoever else had other things, but that's the only hard thing within Speedway is the rider as it is doesn't seem to have any say or rights to it. Like, for instance, Kingston last night, the track was pretty bad. Do you know what I mean? And they did everything they could to fix it. Let's say it was 10 times worse than it was, and you just didn't want to go out. Well, if you didn't want to go out, then you get a fine or you get a ban. Do you know what I mean? And in that sense, it'd be nice if, same with contracts, you could go on all the time about this. But if you actually read any of the contracts, the rider has no say in terminating the contract. Yet if the club goes, right, we're sacking you, it's done there and then. Don't have to give notice, don't have to give anything. So that's where it's quite hard as a rider, because we are self-employed and we are doing it to try and earn some money. Do you know what I mean? But everything always seems against you sometimes. So that's where it's quite hard. But not going off on a tangent, going back to your question with track, it's an awkward one because every fan's got their own opinion, haven't they? All four of you here sitting there, you'll go to a meeting, you'll probably all, if it's been a good meeting, you'll come away and say it's good. And if it's been a bit of it's been all right, you'll all have your different opinions with it all. One of you, like for instance, might go, damn, Beauty's going really well, and the other might go, do you know what I mean? So that's what's hard, because everyone's got their own opinion, and there's so many stories within what's happening all the time. And also it's so up and down. Someone could go out and take Kasperzak, gets a 15-point max, then he goes nothing, then he'll go, next week we'll go max out again. Do you know what I mean? And that's where it gets funny. But like I say, I think it's best not to get involved in too much of it all. But yeah, it's a complicated whole thing sometimes, isn't it?
Politics, full stop. Just stay away from it. Just go out and ride.
Yeah, and
Leave
to be
that
honest,
to people
that's
to know what they're
also
doing.
that's also what's quite nice about riding all the time, is you don't have time to start thinking too much about what's just happened the other night, say, because you're already riding again. Sometimes you get to a track, and like I found it last year. I don't know how many, I think I did 96, 97 in the end last year, and that's me doing most of the driving, all the bike washes, bar 1 or 2. Do you know what I mean? And at one point in like June, July, it got too much for me. Do you know what I mean? Because it would, but the only way you learn that it's too much is by doing it. Do you know what I mean? And then you know when to step back and whatnot. So, like I say, last year was the best year for me as a person and as an individual, just to learn everything about myself and the sport, just by doing it. But,
You talk about being busy. Like, I think today's your only day off this week.
yeah.
So what has your day off today looked like? Has it been chilling out, or has it been bike washing and getting everything ready for Birmingham and Kings
Yeah.
Lynn and Redcar?
Well, I was supposed to just do the bike today, to be honest, but I ended up going to the Hagen factory this morning. I've been working there all. That's what I do in the winter. Is I work doing all the CNC and the VMC machines and stuff. But yeah, I had a couple of things on my wheels I wanted to sort out. So I think I got in about 10, and I was thinking, if he left about lunchtime, I'll be happy. And then I finished all my little bits, and yeah, got dragged into doing a little bit of actual work for about an hour or so. Do you know what I mean? And then come back, and yeah, I've only just come in, to be honest. So yeah, the problem is there's always something more to do, and you want to water something and whatnot. And that's sometimes where it's nice to almost step away completely from it and then come back, and then it gives yourself that little break sometimes. But the problem I've got is I just love it all completely, and I wouldn't change it. Do you know what I mean? I'm enthusiastic, and until that starts dying down, I probably won't be any different. But yeah, after, like I say, after today, yeah, fly out till Saturday, and then go home from Berwick, and then have Sunday off and go again.
Going back to a couple of points you made earlier when you said like you could get sacked like that. Obviously, Redcar announced when they was doing their team reveal that they'd signed you as an asset, but they've also said they intend to use you in 2024 as well. How important is that to you, knowing that you've got that job security for 2 years?
Yeah, I don't know how much it stands up. I hope it does. But I mean, I've signed a contract. But yeah, that was a big thing. Like last year, I couldn't fault Redcar whatsoever. Do you know what I mean? They took a punt on me just having a go, thinking, I don't know, my must have been a 3-pointer last year. And the problem I've got now is you've got Redcar, and then you go to all the away tracks, and you think the crowds are poor, and you think the track's not as good, and the atmosphere. Do you know what I mean? Because I've been treated so much, been same as if you probably ride at Bellevue. Do you know what I mean? You get treated so much, and then but no, that was a big thing for me, just because obviously, hopefully by the end of this year, I'll be that 5 to 6 point average mark. What's the hardest average to get in a flipping team? It's the 5 to 6 point average, because you're too good to be at reserve, but you're sometimes not quite good enough. You're not a heat leader, but you're kind of that second string, and then the second strings always seem to get like take Drew and people this year. Do you know what I mean? And Max Clegg and all of them, they haven't got team places just because the way obviously the averages worked last year, with it being on the rolling averages, they had a couple of good meetings at the end of the year, and they've done themselves out of a job. So that's a big thing for me. Just it gives like that, and also I can start getting local sponsors to Redcar, and just generally just get everything. Because again, if you jump from club to club to club, you never have any local sponsors within the area. No one knows who you are. The fans don't know who you are, so then they're less likely to help out, and you can go on for hours. But like I say, I'm dead happy at Redcar with everything, and it just means I've got to have a good season this year to really cement my place. Really,
You certainly on your way to a good season. I mean, obviously, I saw you at Scunny, and I have to say I was very, very impressed with how you rode.
well, I know Simon obviously on track walks. What do we do? We'll give them plenty of practice, so when they come back with Redcar, obviously that's the only thing. That's the awkward thing, is everyone's always saying, obviously, Redcar and Scunny are in the BSM thing together, and that's between us two who's going to actually get through to the next stage. But at the same time, we're paid per point. Do you know what I mean? I want to get as many points as I can. Do you know what I mean? So, and what's also nice for me is I get practice at all the tracks. The more I can ride the tracks, the better I'm going to get. You don't just turn up and just max out every week just from not.
Yeah.
So that's what's nice for me, and especially at this stage of the year, it's just racing, because this year was a funny one where we normally get sort of 2, 3, 4 weeks of practice before the year. But this year, that period, it was just washed out, wasn't it? Everywhere got cancelled. The farmers' fields are soaked, and yeah, we didn't get anything. So we kind of just rode ourselves into the year. So that, in that sense, I had a bike that I hadn't even used until last Saturday, just because I hadn't been able to get practice anywhere. And the way they move when you do a start and whatnot, when you haven't ridden the bike, yeah, it's just like I say, you just need to go through them all.
And just a bit of a weird one, this really, but if you've ever like had a weekend off, what's one of them? Is something like doing a grass track meeting or a long track meeting ever crossed your mind to like get more practice on like the bumpier kind of surfaces?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because I was Sunday just gone. I was supposed to be doing the Bantasia grass track, because Ben Isley he messaged me last year as well, but I had quite a few fixtures on that little area. But I penciled it in this year, and was like, because they were going to give me a bike, give me everything, I could just turn up and just have a go. And it's something I've always wanted, just to have one go, not more than one, just to have one go at it, just to get to experience it and whatnot. And to be honest, that's kind of how King's Inn was last night. It was kind of like just a soft grass track around the inside and whatnot. And but yeah, like I say, I'd like to give it a long track. That doesn't really appeal to me too much, to be honest. But like I say, I wouldn't mind doing one grass track. And obviously I was supposed to do it on Sunday, but it got cancelled. So you never know. Maybe I'll be in next year and give it another go. But it's the same with like motocross and stuff. That's the background I've always come from, is motocross. Absolutely love it all. And like I say, if I have got an off weekend and I can go to, say, a Southern motocross meeting, I'll be in it, be in the B group, whatnot, and pay my 50, 60 quid, and off we go.
I was watching the Scunny meeting the other night on Friday, and for my money, the ref was holding the tapes a long time. Do you kind of study how long it's being held? If you're like you're in heat 2, do you watch and count heat 1 and see how long they're being held for, and kind of work it out?
Yeah, because I think heat 1 was really. I know. Did Alfie break the tapes? Didn't I think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Broke the tapes, didn't they, in heat 1? And then Ty obviously broke the tapes or jumped or did whatever he did as well. Yeah, if you actually watch any meeting, especially if you can try and watch the hits, you'll see all of us riders practicing doing our starts, and every referee's different. There's a couple that is very much 1, 2, 3, go, and there's others that will vary it and whatnot. But yeah, everyone always watches that first start because generally speaking, the referee, what he does in heat 1, he's going to carry on for the rest of the meeting. There are some referees that as soon as that green light goes on, the tapes go up. So you've definitely got to get the revs up quite quickly to get going. But yeah, I know some riders like Charles and people, they know the referees off by heart. I don't know if that's because they've had plenty of years with some of them. Do you know what I mean? And they know what type of decisions they make. And but yeah, that's what we always do. That heat 1's always very important. And yeah, see what they do.
Wall, and you see all the riders like going.
Yeah, that's it.
Fast.
Yeah.
As they go up, you just see him like throw the hands, like they're letting everything go. As it's like, I know what you're doing.
Yeah, and that, like I say, and it's the same as you'll see us all when we pull up to the tapes and we all flash our hand like that, and it's just to know green light is and whatnot. But all of that's more just getting you, especially in an away track. A home track's slightly different because you know where it is all the time. But I sometimes think it's useful. Say Redcar a couple of weeks back, it was a day meeting, but when it's a day meeting, you can't see the green light as much. So it's nice to know how bright it is, and all silly things. It just sets you so you know what's going on a hell of a lot better. Because I mean, you don't if you miss it slightly, that's the end of the race. Do you know what I mean? So it's worth taking all the as much as you preparation as you can into everything. And yeah, we don't get very long to earn our money, so we better make the most of it.
Yeah, 60 seconds most tracks, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you think that, touching on refs and how long they hold them, do you think that would you prefer to see league racing follow the Grand Prix format of staggered starts and it goes up on a kind of automated thing, or is it just better to just leave it to the refs and keep it simple?
Yeah, well, I mean, 9 times out of 10, when the referee does it, there's nothing wrong with it. Do you know what I mean? As long as they press, I don't know what buttons they've actually got, to be honest. I know, where was it? Where were we the other day? I don't know if it was. Well, I don't even know where I've been this year. There was one track, and they couldn't show you where the green light was because when the green light went on, it then sent the tapes up after. So I don't know where that was. I don't know if it was Sheffield. It might have been Sheffield or somewhere. I don't know. But yeah, obviously last year I did the under-24, the kids league in Poland, and I'll be doing that again this year. And they've used that same format, and I mean. So the only thing with that is because I think that it's 1 to 3 seconds, and when it's the 3 seconds, it feels a hell of a long. Because obviously the referee probably counts a bit quicker than the actual seconds still. So, but I mean, as long as those tapes go up, I'm not too fussed. Do you know what I mean? Obviously it does get rid of the jumping thing, but I mean, I still think you should be able to move as long as you don't touch the tapes. Do you know what I mean? How many take that Scunthorpe meeting the other day? How many delays and stops do we have because someone moved slightly at the start? Do you know what I mean? 9 times out of 10, if they jump the start, well, good on them if they can get it right. But other than that, I mean, how many times did James Sargent go through the tapes instead of making it?
And they normally end up punishing themselves, don't they? Because they'll back off the throttle because they've moved slightly, and then everyone else is gone, and you're at the back.
Yeah, and it's like now, obviously, we've got the 1 minute rule coming, but I mean, then it's still another delay while something else happens. Do you know what I mean? If it was just, as long as no one touches them, I don't say as in the whole thing where they're rolling back and forwards and all of that, but I'm only on about from a spectator point of view because I know what's up watching some meetings. You just think, come on, let's just get on with it a bit more rather than delay. Spectators don't care if someone moves slightly. Do you know
that? Is it jumping the line, or is it anticipating it perfectly to get the go?
Yeah, and I mean, like I say, to anticipate it perfectly, it takes some doing. Do you know what I mean? What you probably know,
in my opinion, if you anticipate it, you just before they go up and you're gone.
Yeah. So, like I say, if you'll try it on your Speedway Challenge, I'm sure you'll play. I mean, it's dead hard to get a bang on right in that.
Yeah, I've just gone back to that game actually, and I've noticed it's so much more difficult to gate on that than it used to be. That used to be my races I could clear off, and now it's like, oh, I'm actually having to like learn how to ride.
Yeah.
With guesting, does it like what's the process of guesting? Like, do you just get contacted, ask for the details, and then yes or no, do you have to contact mechanics and sort of if look at your fixture, see if you're racing there like you raced at Birmingham last week with Scunny because you're there tomorrow night. Does that kind of come into your head as well?
Yeah, I've always, when I first started, thought it'd be a lot more complicated than it all is. Do you know what I mean? Like National League, I'm going off on a tangent again. You don't even sign a contract half the time. They might do some of the teams, but I mean, the first lot at Eastbourne I did, but the first couple I did, it was just, yep, I'll ride for you. This is still all like Facebook Messenger. Do you know what I mean? And I think, all right. But yeah, like most of the time, the team is supposed to contact your club to get permission, is how it's supposed to work. Whether that happens or not, I don't always know. I know red cards for you, and it always with me is the more races I can get, the better. Do you know what I mean? Like they're never going to say no to it. But yeah, the only bit that gets complicated is, for instance, I know last year with some like Ben Cook and whatnot, because of their work visas, they couldn't guest for anyone other than Paul, just due to how their work visas. But yeah, it's like I say, it's either on text message, they'll send it all through, or they'll ring you up, say what it is, you'll have what you want, and 9 times out of 10, it's 2 seconds and off you go. So like I say, I always thought it would be a lot more complicated than it is. And what's also nice is you know what all the other clubs pay. Do you know what I mean? And you know, because when you first start, everything's a bonus. You think, oh, this is all right, and then you go to the next club, and it's quite nice in that sense because then you know what everyone is doing. But like I say, it's normally either just a text or a phone call. What's nice with a text is it is in writing what you're getting. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, like I say, and then you just go from there. But I am shocked still with Speedway because there's a lot of trust, especially with Spear riders, when they leave it. Oh, you can guess Wednesday. You're all right doing it. Blah blah blah. Right, I'll see you Wednesday, and that's the week before, and then you don't get contacted until you turn up at the track. Do you know what I mean? So I mean, you know what Spear riders are like.
Touching on this is completely off topic. We've had discussions before about like on this podcast about Kevlars and team looks. Now, for me, this season, Red Car have got it perfect with a half and half suit, with half team, half individual. Is that something that, like, is it important for a rider that you've still got your individuality on there, or is it, is it something that you don't really see in Speedway?
I was quite chuffed this year because I got 2 sets of Kevlars. Do you know what I mean? Last year I had my own suit that was the year before, and I mean I used it every meeting, holes in it, zips broke, everything. So that for me it was just a bonus to get 2 suits. Yeah, I like to say I know Red Car have done the bit where they've all got our own colours and whatnot. Like Charles has got his green, but who knows? I think it looks a hell of a lot more professional. I hate the motocross shirts when you guess for someone just flapping around, and I mean, I don't know what's wrong with a nice bib. Do you know what I mean? But I don't know if it's because they think it's cheaper to make, or they've got some at the track shop and they nick it out of there. But yeah, like I say,
One of these.
yeah, do you know what I mean? And I know when I guessed it for Scunny at Birmingham, obviously were they the old supporters shirts?
The old,
hockey
it's the Trackstar hockey shirt from last year.
Is that what it is? Yeah. And I mean, I don't know what it is. It's probably like a 4XL, and I had tie on the back.
Hockey jerseys do have a habit of running a bit bigger than Speedway tops.
Yeah. So yeah, like I say, God no, I was just chuffed I got some. But I know Red Car's thing was obviously I know Birmingham are the only ones this year that don't have them, and it does then make everyone else look a hell of a lot more professional. Do you know what I mean? But
that was down to money, unfortunately.
Was it? Yeah. But then at the same time, I know a lot of them were all doing the sponsor things, but Red Car used bibs last year. Scunny have used bibs for however long. But again, do the fans really care too much? As long as you got your bright helmet colour on. The only thing I think is obviously for the team, if you do have suits, you've got more placement for all the club sponsors. Do you know what I mean? Like whoever the team, like obviously Red Car I go back to, they can have their actual club sponsors on more places and on the arms and stuff. Where obviously if you have personal suits, the rider gets everywhere pretty much.
Another one I've noticed today as well, Alex Brady's come out and made some interesting comments about the performance last night. Can you feel the pressure from within the Kings Lynn team and from the supporters at the minute of like, especially on riders like Kasperzak who have got such experience and stuff? Can you feel that there's a mounting pressure coming on the team to perform, and maybe that's making you try too hard?
Yeah, it was a funny atmosphere to be honest last night because there was a hell of a lot of pressure on Kings Lynn. We knew we weren't going to beat Sheffield on the aggregate. Do you know what I mean? Because I think they already had a 30-point lead or something. But yeah, it was a funny atmosphere. Obviously, the crowd wasn't too good either, and you do notice when the team doesn't win, the crowd doesn't come. Do you know what I mean? If I was a spectator, I'd just be a neutral fan, and you just go and watch good racing. Do you know what I mean? But it does seem a lot of the time it is all they do want is 5-1, 5-1, 5-1. And doesn't matter if it's the most processional racing there could be. That's all they kind of sometimes care about. But yeah, it's hard for me because obviously I'm the rising star and I'm just trying to get a point. Do you know what I mean? For me this year, like championships where I'm trying to make as many points as I can. Top league, I just want to pick off some races, try and win Heat 2, anything from there's a bonus and do it that way. But I had a good little start, sort of 3-4 points first couple of meetings, and recently I've gone 1-1. So, like I say, the problem is, like you say, you start putting more pressure on yourself, and you start going worse. It's hard for me being at reserve because I'm always going to have, like Josh is now at reserve, Josh Pickering. Do you know what I mean? So 9 times out of 10, he's going to nick my fourth ride, and you understand why, because they're trying to win the meetings. But yeah, I do think it does build up and whatnot. Kings Lynn just need a couple of good meetings, and they'll be all right. But like I say, if it keeps going that way, it starts getting worse and worse, and it starts to get harder.
Wasn't it? In the knockout cup, we did absolutely disastrous. Didn't win a single meet, let alone an away one.
Yeah,
and then went on to win the main season.
Yeah.
You know, it just takes a bit of time sometimes to click on. Like if you look at individual riders like Bewley, how many meetings he had now? 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And then last night he got a paid max.
Yeah. So yeah, like I say, it's for me, it's baby steps all the time, and just keep plodding away, and just get, like I say, that's the nice thing when you got lots of meetings, is it's just next meeting, and whatnot. But yeah, Kings Lynn obviously is very dependent on Kasperzak and Nikolai and people really improving. Well, I say not improving what their average is at the moment, not as riders, but their average. So yeah, I don't know. Like I say, I'm just trying to pick up points, and that's all I can do, and try and put a smile on everyone's faces sometimes.
Does it frustrate you a little bit? It frustrated me when Kings Lynn were at Wolves the other week and you were taken out of Heat 4, where you'd have had probably a good battle with Leon, and instead you were put in one of Freddie's races against Rory and Dougie. Like, it doesn't help when that's like if it's a Rising Star versus Rising Star Heat 2 and 4, you've got more of a chance of getting the points than being replaced and going up against 2 heat leaders, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like, does that annoy you a little bit as a rider, that you get taken out of a easier race or a more even race and put into a race that you're not expected to do anything, just to sacrifice getting one of your 3 minimum rides out of the way?
Yeah, because I learned how it all works at Plymouth with Gary May, because I mean he's the professional at getting the program, chucking it in the bin, ripping it up, and then starting from scratch. I mean, you need about 3 pens as a spectator, didn't you, filling it in? But that's where I learned how it all works. And generally, it's the same kind of concept. That's where it's nice if Kings Lynn are winning and they're thrashing everyone, because I'm thinking, right, we're all right. But it generally tends to be, if you don't win Heat 2, you get taken out of Heat 4, generally speaking. So then you go Heat 2, and then you wait until Heat 8, because you have to go in Heat 8. And then, like I say, then you'll probably get stuck in, I don't know, heat 10, 11, 12, probably off one of the worst gates there is. And that's kind of how it is. But at the same time, the way I see it is we're getting the chance to ride in the top league with the best riders there is. And we wouldn't be getting that chance otherwise. Do you know what I mean? So obviously you're disappointed. You're always frustrated because it's always hard when, especially when you got your helmet on, you're all ready to go out. And then it's, right, we're going to stick Fred in. Do you know what I mean? But like I say, it's a team sport and it's for the team, the whole team idea of it. And that's how it is. And they're going to stick the better rider off the better gate all the time because they want the points. If it was just an afternoon where we just all go out for a bit of fun on a Sunday, it wouldn't make any difference. But at the end of the day, the team's trying to win, and that's what you got to always remember. But yeah, like I say, it is always hard in that sense because otherwise, sometimes you might go heat 2, 8, 14, or you might go heat 2, 4, 8, done. Do you know what I mean? And that's the hardest thing is you've just got, instead of keep going out in the meeting, you've got these big delays, the track's changing loads. And then you also, say you get a last in the first one and you're not out till heat 8, 9, 10, you're then thinking about everything. And you're thinking about your body position and you're thinking about how to ride. And then at the same time, you just need to just go out and ride rather than, it's like writing on a pen and paper. If you start thinking about joining everything up, you're going to mess it up suddenly rather than just doing it. So, like I say, that's why last year was good because I learned so much about the sport as a whole, how it works, what's good, what's bad, and what to listen to and what to completely ignore and realise no one actually knows what they're talking about.
And we've got, obviously, Wolves possibly going at the end of the year, Peterborough possibly going at the end of the year. Do you think they were at a crossover where the conversations of one big league may need to step up a little bit, or do you think that's just not viable in the country?
Yeah, obviously it was a massive shock for everyone with the Wolves situation. And obviously we know about the Peterborough thing for a couple of years, haven't we? They were lucky to get this extra year now. Plus the uncertainty of Birmingham at the moment. I know speaking to Nigel the last couple of meetings, because I guessed Birmingham quite a few times last year. And someone like Nigel who puts his absolute heart and soul into it, it's just such a... So I like I say, suddenly you've got that possibility. We don't know what's happening with Edinburgh. Or Edinburgh getting another year or two. Suddenly, realistically, that's four teams with big question marks over them. What would the top 5 teams in the top league, would that make it? And then 7 in the championship or something?
Aren't Edinburgh currently building a new stadium? Or have they not got anywhere yet?
Where the permission got turned down where it was supposed to be. But I don't know if they can carry on. I know they got this year, but I don't know if they... I don't know the ins and outs of it all.
I'm pretty sure I read somewhere on social media that no one's actually been to buy Edinburgh's track, so they can just keep leasing it on like a year-by-year basis.
Oh, okay, yeah. So if they can, obviously that's a massive positive. But again, that's the bit we don't like ever hearing is the year-by-year part. Do you know what I mean? Because you can never build for the future all the time. That was the nice thing when you looked at all the plans that John's son did, Gordon. He'd done everything. Do you know what I mean? The hours he must have spent putting that all together with it all. And obviously that's where for Edinburgh the whole youth academy side of it turned into. Which is a shame because I know when I rode for Edinburgh guesting loads of time, I keep saying that, don't I? But they brought probably 10, 11 kids into the sport just from making that little square funny track in the middle. But again, that's 10 kids that wouldn't be riding Speedway that now possibly have a track they've lost. So, yeah, obviously the question at the moment is what do they do? And everyone's got their own opinion with it all. I don't know. I don't really know how it would work if it's one big league. I don't know if that means there's more team spot. Obviously, there must be more because you lose all the doubling up riders. But I just think the big worry if it's one big league is your top league clubs will still want to be top league clubs with their star riders. And you'll get the championship clubs that are trying to do it affordable Speedway that they can promote each week. So it's finding that middle ground in that sense. So, yeah.
How would that work as well with the likes of Bellevue and Sheffield being able to afford your Musilacs, your Bewley and whatnot, and somebody like Birmingham, they're not going to get a look in when it comes to the likes of them, are they, financially?
So, like I say, that to me would be the biggest question mark, is how how the points limit would be, what would the team structure be, and then obviously it goes into the question of do like a north and south divide, or do something. But God knows. To me, as long as the Speedway is still going, we've still got teams that being able to fund it every week. Everything's just the latter of that. Do you know what I mean? But if we have the star people or not, Speedway as a whole, as a sport, needs to carry on, and that's the biggest thing for me, I think. So, yeah, like I say, I'm not one of the powers that be. I don't get told too much, but yeah, I don't know what they're going to do. That's the nice thing when you look at Workington. Do you know what I mean? The amount of money and investment they've put into it. For how we talk so much, and it's all depressing about tracks going all the time, but to have somewhere that's all new, everyone's excited to go to. How good is that to be? Do you know what I mean?
Come back.
Well, yeah.
You know, sadly, we're losing 2 at the end of this year, but we gained 1 at the beginning.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? And I think that's the bit that always gets forgotten all the time. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know how hard it is. We always talk about you've got to have so much money to build stadiums and so on. So, but what if it was just, especially like a farmer, and he gives the field, and you just gradually build a track up? Do you need a stadium? Do you know what I mean? Have some training rooms, and as long as the sport as a whole is going, that's the main thing all the time.
That's how Scuddy started, God knows how many years ago.
Yeah, well, I know, like Mildenhall, it's obviously they just used to have straw bank outside, and then from that build a bank up, and then it gradually builds into something. But do you know what I mean? Obviously, I don't know. I don't know how hard it is, but like I say, even if it was a real grassroots route, and that's what I think is good about. I don't know how many of you have been to Islade. It is a practice track still and a training track, but it's just in a field. They've got some old caravans, like Buxton's. Does that get Buxton and people back? Everyone's, do you know what I mean? Everyone sits in their car like they're at a grass track, and do you know what I mean? That's what it's all about. So I know it's a big difference from obviously your Bellevues and whatnot, but that's what's nice going to Redcar every week. Every couple of months, there's an improvement on the stadium. They're building out from. Do you know what I mean? I know they're putting in a new refs box now. They've done all the concrete at the back for spectator area, and they've got a scoreboard now. And do you know what I mean? Every month or so, they're improving it a little bit, and that's because they're doing it at a rate where they're making a little bit of money that they can put back in. There's not someone at the top of it going, "Here's my cut. This is for me." It's all going back in because it's a club, rather than it being an individual at the top of it. So, yeah. Who knows?
Here's another one for you, Jason. The South Stand at Bellevue.
Yeah.
It's actually a temporary stand, and it has been since 2016 when it was erected.
What's that? Sorry?
The South Stand on the back straight.
Yeah.
It's a temporary stand.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not even a permanent fixture. It's a temporary thing on breeze blocks still.
Oh, is it still on breeze blocks? Is it? Yeah.
And it has been since 2016. So, you know, just because we're in the top league and all this, we don't, you know, still got porta potty toilets out the back and a burger van turning up.
Funny, the South Stand at the end of the back straight's probably one of the best places to watch as well.
Yeah, Ben 3 is the best spot.
Do you know what I mean? Watching everyone, I know I went to watch the Peter Craven last year at Bellevue, and obviously 6-man final, all of them racing into the turn, bit of dirt on the outside, and then pumped off poodles around the inside and beats everyone. And but yeah, to me, that's what it's. Obviously, that's the only thing. For instance, Bellevue's got such a nice stadium, everything about it, but the cost of running the stadium is through the roof. Do you know what I mean? So suddenly it makes it a fortune to afford paying for the place it's like building a brand new house.
Yeah.
If you build a mansion, you've got to suddenly pay to keep it running all the time. So you might be able to afford, and I know that obviously that's what Chris Morton said a lot of the time, isn't it?
You mentioned Mildenhall, actually. You've dropped the National League this year. A lot was made of the Mildenhall track last year. Do you think, now that you're not kind of in the setup, do you think it was track issues, or do you think it was just the track was too grippy for the least experienced rider?
I think I'll use the example of Kings Lynn last night. If it was a National League meeting at Kings Lynn last night, we'd have the same issues that Mildenhall has. Do you know what I mean? And Mildenhall is completely against it with being an afternoon meeting on a Sunday with a clay-based track, which is very small, with riders that aren't the best. Do you know what I mean? And I say that still referring to myself really as being one of the better National League riders. Do you know what I mean? I absolutely love my time at Mildenhall. Do you know what I mean? I can't fault it whatsoever. And I never had a crash other than when I got wiped out. Do you know what I mean? So I just think because I had a practice there the other week actually, but it is a small track for the speed that you go around there. Do you know what I mean? You are riding it, as silly as it sounds, like a Bellevue, but on such a small scale. And suddenly, because it's very narrow, such a small margin of error, if the bike does lift or pick up slightly, you haven't got the runoff like Scunny or somewhere has to get the bike sorted. But yeah, like I say, I know Christmas time Mildenhall wasn't running this year. They didn't have they couldn't afford it. They didn't have the funds, and the crowd come on and did a big GoFundMe page, and they managed to get the club going again. But yeah, like I say, I do think the hard thing for Mildenhall is just the clay, because I know the way the Speedway works there is Mildenhall as a club doesn't have to pay for the dirt because obviously it's stock car owned. Stock cars want the clay. That's what we get. But the clay makes it very hard to work with. If it's too dry, it's too dusty and it's rock hard. If it's too wet, then it goes like a greasy slime that even if you walk on the track, you're going to fall over. But like I say, as a whole, it's just good. Mildenhall have got a good team and they're running again. Because again, like we were just saying a minute ago, to say we're losing another club, well, suddenly that map in the first star of the tracks, we haven't got many dots left. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, I can't fault my time. Like I think I did 3 years in the end, and I loved every minute of riding there.
And as a rider, when you have a day off like today, do you like to keep in the, let's say if there was a meeting on TV or something tonight or a stream on BSM, would you watch that, or on your days off do you try and separate yourself from Speedway a bit and just enjoy being Jason Edwards the person rather than the Speedway rider?
Yeah, like I say, Tuesday nights we don't tend to get too much, so but I have got to watch the Bellevue meeting still from last night. So but that's the nice thing though with all the streaming is we can watch the meetings all back properly. Like when my mum used to come with me everywhere, she used to film with her phone and it was brilliant to watch. But then you've got the netting and you can't quite see it all. And that's the nice thing with these televised meetings now is you can watch everything. Do you know what I mean? And you pick up so many little bits that you don't notice at the time. And I think that's one of the big things that always gets missed is when you're not watching it back, you can't work out what went wrong, or if it did go well, you can spot things. But it's normally when it goes wrong that you don't tend to want to watch it because you can move on. So, yeah, like I say, it's hard for me because I love it and everything. So I always want to be around it and whatnot. But yeah, it does take over your life, and obviously, to me, that's part of it. And the problem is, I know I've only got a small window to get good. Do you know what I mean? So at the point I am at the moment is I want to kind of make the most of these next 2 years to try and get there. Then I can decide what I'm doing. But it's more important for me just to crack on at the moment and try and get as good as I can.
Very
For
important
you
question.
then, streaming their meeting starting tomorrow, so you'll be able to watch the red car meeting back from Perry Bar tomorrow night.
Yeah, I spoke to Nigel last week, and he was saying they did a test run last week. He's quite excited to be doing that, to be honest, because I know he didn't get a very good crowd. I think he got 350 last week. He was saying so.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
Yeah, and I know he was saying he spent a lot with advertising, and like I say, it's hard because someone like Nigel put so much effort in. Him and Lawrence, even just around, they put like new gates in at the stadium. Do you know? So it's hard, but like I say, they're just so enthusiastic, and he's just hoping the idea of the streaming is you catch a few of the people that might not go because it might rain, or they're in Scotland and they want to watch the Birmingham meeting, you catch a few more people, and I don't know what it costs to do this treatment, to be honest, but yeah, actually, you'll probably know, Dan, to be honest.
It all really depends, to be fair, because like if you go down the Glasgow route of 2 years ago or whatever it was, they was paying like a professional company. I think it was like £3,000 a meeting.
Is that what they would pay?
Whereas like us at Scuddy, like we own all our equipment, so all we have to do is pay our streaming provider X amount to put it on, and then there it is.
Yeah.
So, talking of streaming, have you watched Scorpius TV yet? And if not, why not?
I haven't watched the Scunny Birmingham meeting. I watched the Scunthorpe Beat Redcar meeting. So like I say, I think it's brilliant, all the streaming. And also, what's nice as a rider, and I know it might sound really silly and cliche and whatnot, it's another thing to say you're on BSN every week. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've had quite a few people this year that they asked, what can you do for them? And it's another thing you can put on the list, and you can actually show photos of it. Like, for instance, when you're doing an interview in their booth and whatnot, it's another bit of exposure and another bit of thing to actually sell, basically, which is, as a rider, it's brilliant. Do you know what I mean? And that was what was quite cool about doing the kids meeting at Cardiff last year. Obviously, I was only reserve and whatnot, but it was on Discovery. Do you know what I mean? It was all complicated. You just go through the app and whatnot, and you can watch it in whatever language you want. But it was another thing. And I mean, you get so many photos and so many little clips from it. You can sell them. Do you know what I mean? And you can say, this is what I did. And if, as a business that doesn't know too much about it, they can look up, the stadium and go, oh, it's quite cool. Do you know what I mean? So it's another thing to sell, and it's another bit of exposure. So it's brilliant, really.
Does of cameras change your think? Like, if you're on TV, do you try that? Does it change your mindset in any way, or is it behind closed doors, say, or cameras? Is it just the same routine week after week?
Yeah, and the problem is, we do it that much, it has to be routine. Do you know what I mean? It'd be different if you were only doing a couple of meetings, then suddenly one. It was quite cool last year because it was one of my first meetings with Kings Lynn, and I think it was at Wolves actually, and it was on Eurosport, and then obviously they got that massive telly, and you can watch it all. And I remember it was the only meeting I did last year at Bellevue, and I beat Norwich in Heat 8, and then we had a good little race. Come in the pits, obviously it's on their massive screen in slow-mo, and you're thinking, you know what I mean? It just obviously, like GP, right? They get used to it all and whatnot. But for me, it was quite a cool little thing just to be like, yeah. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, obviously Eurosport's budget is God knows what. Do you know what I mean? With massive cameras, but that's what's nice with the BSM thing. Obviously, I know Ben's spent loads of money doing it all, but how many meetings are they doing? Do you know what I mean? They're doing more meetings than most of the riders. So, yeah.
Doing more than Eurosport, that's for sure.
Yeah, and the thing with I don't know. We need to speak to Ben really. I don't know how they've managed to be able to do the top league meetings.
Well, they've got the entire pairs tournament, haven't they? And a massive chunk of the Premiership.
Yeah. Because my understanding was Eurosport had the rights to the top league. So, I don't know how they've done it, to be honest. But it's what it needs. It needs to be an in-house thing. And, I mean, not being funny nowadays, everyone goes on their laptop or phone and sends it to TV anyway. No one really watches BBC and ITV anymore. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, like I say, the whole BSN thing, all the streaming at the tracks, you can't fault it at all.
I've not, no.
I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
I'll tell you this, right? Birmingham have recently put money into bus adverts. I was at work on Monday, sat in the office minding my own business, and this bus whizzes past, and there's a Birmingham Speedway advert on the back, and I'm thinking, that's a new thing. I was like,
that's a good idea.
There you go.
How many want to see a bus?
Yeah, because I know Nigel was saying he spent a load of money on Facebook ads and whatnot, but it's a hard thing advertising, isn't it? Because it's you always expect a return on your investment instantly, don't you? But the people that see it, like, how many times do you see an advert? I don't know what it's for it, whether it's a show or whatever, or even like when you're at the cinema and you always say, "Oh, what's that?" Do you know what I mean? You might think about doing it, but then you always end. So it's a very hard thing advertising all the time. But like I say, you've got to give them credit where credit's due. They are trying, and it's a very hard location. And I think that's the hard thing with Birmingham is just location of it to get the people to go and watch in real life. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's never. You want every club to succeed, and all we can do as riders is try and put the best show in the racing on, and actually ride and not kick up a fuss saying the track's too. And this is where Birmingham did really well. We were obviously there Wednesday. There wasn't a bump on the track. Do you know what I mean? Last year there was big aggro with waves and everything, and they've spent so much time in the winter flattening the track. There isn't a bump on it, so we'll see how it goes.
I was going to ask you about that actually. What you thought of it last week?
Yeah, they had it on the slicker side, but like I say, from what it was last year to this year was a massive difference. You know what I mean? And they've got a blank canvas now to work with. If they want to put more dirt on, they can gradually build it up. If they want to leave it slick, they can leave it slick. But the main thing for Birmingham is it's a blank canvas and it's flat. And it's like Leicester, obviously, last year. The home riders probably didn't enjoy it too much, but they always had a massive home advantage. And I know, speaking to a couple of them, even at King's Inn last night, who ride for Leicester, it's all the away riders now are liking the track. I don't know, Nick, you went there the other night when Bellevue were there, but do you know what I mean? It's flat now, so everyone can race themselves in. They're not worried about people doubling off and jumping into the fence. But again, it must help racing. You know what I mean?
For it to have gone to a super heat.
Yeah, I don't know how it works with the riders getting, whether they get paid normal money for a super heat or they get like a bonus for it, or I don't know.
Not a clue, but yeah, seeing the scoreline and everything, it was evenly matched all the way through, wasn't it? Obviously, until heat 16.
Yeah, but again, another race is better for the crowd, isn't it? They get to watch the best riders go again.
Well, yeah, because I'm pretty sure you'd throw heat 15 out for heat 16, wouldn't you? Because obviously it's your best two on the night.
Yeah, so like I say, it's the same as like Golden Heats. We never really get to do it, but I mean, this is what I always think. If you could do a testimonial, you could do so many cool things. I don't know what the rules are, whether you have to stick to a traditional, but do you know what I mean? You could have like your elimination races and 2v2s and do you know what I mean? All silliness like that. But you can do. It'd just be nice if someone. I know when I did Rory's meet testimony when I was on a little 150, he did like his 1 lap dash for cash and all of that. But it's got to be entertainment all the time, hasn't it? And I always think that's sometimes the bit that gets missed. It's just riders. It's like when they go on parade and they just no interest whatsoever. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, do you know what I mean? So all of that part, and it's got to be a show all the time, and it's the bit that always gets forgotten. So yeah, it'd just be nice. What's that?
Matty Zagar would come out of the pits, get to bend 2 at Bellevue, and it'd be like that, and then
yeah,
all the way down the back straight, and then same again up the home straight.
Yeah.
Guy was a loon.
Talk about the promotion of Nigel and that. Do you think if you took the Birmingham promotion and put them in a prime location like Manchester, they'd be making money to spite them? Like, you know, just easy. It'd be a lot easier with that promotion and their ideas and everything like that. If you put them somewhere that wasn't as tricky as Birmingham with parking and all that, do you think they'd be in a much stronger position than they are now?
Yeah, like I say, the biggest thing for Birmingham is the location. Do you know what I mean? And it's just getting, and you've only got to look now. Those obviously were supposed to be for the Commonwealth Games. Those flats that then went university that are now being sold as actual apartments. How quick have they gone up? Do you know what I mean? The whole area around it's gradually getting more and more built up. And yeah, I do think if it was in a slightly different place, and that's the problem is you can't just start from scratch on a blank canvas. Do you know what I mean? And I mean, you like I say, you can't fault them for trying for everything they do and the amount of money Nigel's putting in himself. I mean, it's not from a lack of trying. So yeah, I do think so. So I don't know what they're going to do.
There was 2 tracks. There's been a couple of tracks in Birmingham down the years since Speedway sort of started in this country. There was one at Hall Green a long time ago, and then there was the Wheels project. The council have recently shut that down though, and sorry, it's going to be a football stadium, but what can you do?
Yeah,
Council have got the money after all, isn't it?
yeah, and they choose where the money goes.
Mm.
So, and that's obviously the hard thing. Obviously, it is a minority sport, and it's that I know you had Paul Bowen on the other. I don't know what he was saying with obviously the electric side, but I always look at it, the motocross route. Motocross tracks are closing down everywhere. The only reason the motocross tracks are closing down is because of the noise. Well, if you take the noise out of it, well, no one's got anything to complain about other than dust, and it's a hell of a lot easier to control dust than it is the noise. And do you know what? At the same time, as a stadium, the stadium needs to be utilised all the time, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? And again, going to Scunny, that's where Scunny makes the money. You've got the stadium's being used every day. Do you know what I mean? And it's got to always be making the money somehow. And I know everyone that puts plans in to do a stadium for a speedway track, they talk about obviously having it as a multi-use stadium, but you've got to be bringing the money in and using the stadium. It's different for the Polish teams because money's no object. Do you know what I mean? They get the budget from the extra league and they can do it how they want, but they've got the money in the first place. But yeah, it's just got to be used all the time, and whether that be having a football pitch on the inside like Berwick with the shed, it's got to pay for itself all the time. It's like Paul's vacant all year other than like 20 Wednesdays a year. Do you know what I mean? The location it's in and everything, it's got to be used all the time, you'd have thought. But like I say, they seem to make it work. They get good crowds. So
I'm all out of questions. I've got.
To be fair, I think I have as well, but
I've covered everything.
who's the guest on the show?
We tend to organise that on a week-by-week basis.
I know Dan, like you, we're trying to get the young British riders in if we can. Like we had Dougie, he was a high-profile one, but we want to get younger British riders in to, just get their thoughts on things. Like with you, we've tried to get Leon, people like that.
Yeah,
I want to get more because I think he'd be hilarious.
Who's that?
Yeah.
No.
Well, even to be honest, even someone like Nigel Tolley would be an ideal person.
Yeah,
I'm going to go and ask him tomorrow.
Yeah, because you get the real side of it all the time, don't you? That's always a hard thing when you get like your press side of it. You've always got to try and be quite PC sometimes, but then the truth never gets out to the actual people that pay the money. Do you know what I mean? And then it always gets mixed up all the time. So, and obviously someone like he's got nothing to lose. He's trying to get as much as he can for it, and he wants it to succeed.
That's it. We'll have to look at trying to get Nigel on. As recommended by Edwards, it might give us a little bit of leeway with him.
Might come around the pits tomorrow when I get to Perry Bar and go, "Oi, Nigel, do you fancy coming on the podcast?"
hey, go for it. That's how I got you on, isn't it, Jace?
Yeah, pretty much. Shouted away at Sheffield.
That's the one.
We got Paul Bowen on actually. I just dropped him a message on Facebook. Are you busy on this night? Oh, I am, mate. When are you free on this night? Oh, come on. Go on then.
I do think that's when Speedway is more accessible. You can, like every rider's on Facebook, you message them, 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, like, for you today, it was your day off, but you've come on here for an hour and spoke about Speedway, which you didn't have to do, but you've done.
Yeah, I see it with everything. It's like chatting to everyone at a meeting, though. You want the sport to succeed, and no matter what it is, if there's another podcast, if there's another video, if there's another show, whatever it is, it's still for the sport. Do you know what I mean? How many football podcasts, how many football shows are there? Do you know what I mean? So the more there is, the more chance you're going to get someone to listen to it somewhere, or even just a little clip of it somehow. Do you know what I mean? And then it gets you watching that. That's what Instagram is now, isn't it? People clipping podcast clips and then getting people to actually watch the whole things. So, yeah, who knows?
Thanks for joining us, Jason.
Of-
This episode will go out next week, 5th of May. So look out for that. But thanks for joining us again. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day off to come chat to us.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me.
I've literally got one last question for you.
I've got one more.
One last question. Is Scuddy as suicidal as what Fan Power says?
Suicidal?
Well, there's this chap on Facebook. It's called Fan Power. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I've seen Sponge.
That's the one.
Yeah, I haven't seen one.
And he keeps going around saying suicidal Scuddy all the time. So, like, from a Scuddy perspective, we want to, like, get it from a rider's point. Is Scuddy as suicidal as he's making it out?
Oh, right. Well, not knowing what he said, I mean, obviously, I know Rob's had a lot of stick because he's had to get the polyfoam air fence, hasn't he, on turns 1 to 2. So he's had to get that. And then what he's done on 3 and 4 is where he used to put the airbag straight on the Armco, he's now put a load of foam, which is the idea is if it lifts, you hit the foam rather than the Armco.
Yeah.
But not being funny, every time we've been to Scunny, the racing has been absolutely brilliant. Do you know what I mean? Watching the meeting when Redcar were there, some of the races, do you know what I mean? Ryan misses stuff and he passes everyone, or Charles smashes everyone out the way. Do you know what I mean? You can't fault the racing and whatnot. Yes, it's always on the slick side, but you always know what you get. And I mean, from a rider point of view, they pay instantly. Do you know what I mean? You can't beat that. But yeah, like I say, it'd be nice to be a bit quicker around Scunny, but we'll see what we in the future. I got a couple more goes this year.
Yeah, well, to be fair, I can only echo Ruth's sentiments. A massive, massive thank you for coming on, mate. We really, really appreciate it. And yeah, good luck for your meetings this week. I'm coming up to Redcar on Friday, so please don't score too many points.
Yeah.
But score some.
Either. Just a good get a pay packet, but don't destroy Birmingham too much.
Yeah.
No, like I say, I appreciate it. So thank you.
I'll come
Cheers,
round and
mate.
say hello tomorrow if
Yeah.
I'm there early. See you later. Thanks
Yeah.
for joining us.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
See you later.